Hi everybody, welcome to the Maximize Your Medicare weekly broadcast, simultaneously posted on YouTube and in podcast form. In this week's episode, we'll talk about the Bennis Act and some simplifying and slightly better Medicare enrollment methods and changes that have been made. In addition to that, things to be very careful of when you receive mail from your doctor to advertise a Medicare Advantage plan. And lastly, another revisit of what to expect during the Biden administration under healthcare and health insurance. All that coming up next. There's been some legislation for changes to Medicare. And in fact, you can see the screen. I have been quoted here in this article on thestreet.com. I'm a very frequent contributor being interviewed there almost 3 times a month, pretty much every month for the last 6 months or so. And so the Bennis Act is to try to correct little problems that have always niggled, kind of created hang-ups or problems for people in Medicare enrollment. Number one, the general enrollment period for those persons who have not correctly enrolled in Medicare. What ends up happening is you've got this first quarter, January through March. The problem that it presents is that your coverage date doesn't begin until July. Now that obviously creates a problem because you've got this gap here between January and July, and you're kind of stuck in no man's land. Well, the Bennis Act is there to correct it. It did successfully address it. The noted negative here is that the effective date is not until 2023, meaning that for now, for this year and next year, you're going to have to keep listening to my first quarter rants, which is that if you have not enrolled correctly in Medicare Part A and Part B, January through March, that's the time to correct it. We're in that today. The second change, which did not occur, which is an ongoing problem, is the fact that when people are turning 65, nobody sends an announcement to you. The Social Security Administration doesn't send you a letter to say, knock, knock, you're turning 65, time to think about Medicare. Now, the reason that this is becoming more a problem today as opposed to 5 years ago is because full retirement age under Social Security is no longer 65. So as a result, it used to be kind of convenient, right? People get retired at 65 years old. At the same time, because of the fact that full retirement age under Social Security was also 65. Well, now that is no longer the case because full retirement age under Social Security is no longer 65 years old. So as a result, this delinking of these two dates has led people who kind of just put it onto the bottom drawer and says, okay, I'll deal with Medicare because that's a retirement matter. No, Medicare is a turning 65 matter. And for that reason, the Bennis Act doesn't address the idea that these letters will go out. It never has, and it's not going to fix it. So for me, the Bennis Act, the finalized version, which was passed at the end of 2020, B minus, because while it does address the problem about the general enrollment period that I mentioned, which was my first point, it doesn't really do the trick for the second point. Anyway, be sure to keep watching this channel, and also you can check out the quote that's sitting in the link in this post on thestreet.com. Bob Powell, a journalist, person who's who has written articles and quoted me in the USA Today and other outlets nationwide. We've worked together very, very closely. He's very good because he is in tune with the idea that healthcare, Medicare, health insurance are very important components to financial planning as a whole. You get hit with unlimited amounts of advertisements, commercials, and mail. I get it. And it is difficult. Today's Medicare soundbite has to do with this web page here. It does show you some things that you don't get told in all the advertisements and commercials that you receive. Optum is the name I've highlighted here. Optum expects to add 10,000 physicians this year. This by itself is not particularly noteworthy until you realize that Optum is part of United Health Group. Now, United Health Group is United Healthcare, the nation's largest health insurance company. And it goes to show you just what is told and what isn't told on these commercials and advertisements. It is almost inevitable. If you are a Medicare eligible person, or if you're about to turn 65, you've gotten some piece of mail, and increasingly what we are going to have, what you have received, is a piece of mail from your local hospital or your doctor. It just goes to show you, though, what you're not being told, which is that your doctor, your hospital, may be owned by the insurance company itself. And now you can understand why persons like me are uncomfortable, which is that I don't get to send out directed mail to you. You don't have that from me. You'll never get that from me because there are marketing guidelines that prevent this. I don't get to do that. I can send out mail in mass to everyone without discrimination, but the reality is the cost, the probability of you calling me is too low. So I don't bother. I go back to my book, Maximize Your Medicare, available on Amazon.com. But the main point here is the fact that you need to be careful. You need to be super careful about not only what is told to you, but what is not told to you. Right? Because, and it does go to show you that even those groups, your trusted doctor for decades, could have had his practice, his employer, sold to an insurance company. And yet on this letter saying, by the way, be sure to consider this plan. Is there also the print saying, disclosure, I may be receiving an incentive bonus or other health-related performance bonuses based on you enrolling in this plan? I've read a number of these letters. I've never seen that line in this letter. And now you can understand the issue. That if you have a medical professional who is there having an additional financial stake in your selection of Medicare plans, that creates an inherent conflict. You're going to Dr. X, and Dr. X suggests you enroll in a particular plan. What happens if also you have another specialist, Dr. Z, who doesn't belong? Dr. X can have the situation to say, okay, refer you to Dr. L, who is not Dr. Z, because that person gets additional payments as a result of getting incented by a particular Medicare plan, i.e. Medicare Advantage plan. There's no regulation to protect you on this. So you can understand, I get and see a lot of different ideas about how to improve health insurance markets, healthcare policy, which are two separate things. And nevertheless, for me, this is something probably more practical, more important for you to focus in on as a consumer. Could you ask? Yeah, you could. Does the doctor necessarily know? Yeah, that is possible. That is possible. These amounts aren't going to be small, right? In other words, what has happened is these groups, let's just say Dr. X belongs to a particular hospital-owned practice. Well, if your overall health care costs decline because they've helped you, right? Maybe you don't care. That's fine. Just understand that that group, that doctor, may be getting a bonus as a result of your overall outcome. I'm going to leave it to you to decide whether or not that's been best for you. Maybe there was another doctor that you wanted to see and you were steered back, like I just said. Anyway, do I think that there's any problem here? Well, the problem here is that Medicare Advantage is almost certain to grow. And you can see that the CEOs to Medicare Advantage saying so. Right now, about a third of 60 million, that makes you 20 million by my complicated math, to go up to half of the 60 plus million people on Medicare. In other words, this complicated situation of getting advertisements and not being shown inherent incentives that your healthcare provider may have isn't being fully revealed. Just a word to the wise, that's today's Medicare soundbite. Choosing between Medicare Advantage and Medigap is tough stuff. In fact, you can see a fairly long video here on the Maximize Your Medicare YouTube channel. The reality is that the intense competition amongst the carriers have made things both better and worse for consumers. By better, what I mean, I generally believe that more models, more different types of cars of different shapes and sizes and budgets is better for the buyer. Just as in anything, there's a reason that Amazon.com thrives. The negative is that it is difficult to directly compare the different types of coverages at the different price points under different scenarios. And I'm not going to settle exactly what your situation is here. That's what we do for clients. Remember that your first call or email to me is free. Instead, what I've decided to do is show you what's sitting up on your screen now. This is a Medigap carrier. In this particular case is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Now, reality is that I could have chosen any carrier under Medigap and the observations would be very similar, although not exactly the same. Meaning the Anthems, the United Healthcare, the other Timbuktu Medigap carrier can also be doing the same thing, which is adding extra benefits on top of the standardized benefits. So, to quickly review, every Medigap plan must follow this grid. They must. There's no doubt about it. They're not kind of, sort of the same. They are precisely the same, down to the comma. Period. Maximize Your Medicare is fairly clear that not only this is what I call standardized. In addition to that, they're also grandfathered, meaning once you're the policy owner, no one can kick you out as long as you pay premiums, and the terms and conditions of the coverage will never change. This is very important why people who are existing members of policy owners of Medigap Plan F, Plan C, As long as they continue to pay the premium, they will be covered in the same way. It's simply that due to legislation changes, Plan C, Plan F are no longer available to those whose Medicare Part A and Part B read January 1, 2020, or after that. Let's get back to the point. The point here is that because of the intense competition, and what you'll find under Medicare Advantage in a large number of times are enhanced dental and vision benefits. Now, in a prior edition of this broadcast, this weekly, you'll see me taking a deep dive into how dental should be considered and how complicated it can be. I realize it's difficult. Dentists have largely won the exercise, meaning that the dentists themselves aren't big users of insurance, accepting of insurance. It has resulted in networks which are very, very fragmented, leading to different out-of-pocket charges. In addition to that, there's the concept of waiting period under dental insurance. Now, for Medicare persons, notably better. And you can see it here on the screen, which is this particular carrier is offering enhanced benefits themselves on top of existing Medigap plans. On top of this grid, they're also offering extra stuff. Now, you can see that they're also offering at a pretty good cost, $15.25 a month. Now, different carriers will have different packages at different price points, so this is just an example. That's very important. That's why I've said it twice. A couple of things here is we're going to go down to the actual details, but I just wanted to point out the general theme, which is that let's not presume that Medicare Advantage is the only place you're going to be able to access these packages. The competitive pressure on everyone, including Medigap carriers, has forced this. It's forced prices lower and more competitive. And now you can see at the edge that consumer demand has led to adding these extra packages. Let me just also say that these types of packages did not exist 5 years ago. Medigap carriers generally didn't do this, except for silver sneakers in one instance. Let's just take a look here in the set, and because they're going to say, I'm sure of it, that there are also other well-being related extra benefits, and you see them here on the right-hand page here, and I'll try to make it bigger, included in your membership. And this can be decision support program, 24-hour nurse line, virtual well-being, and blue discounts. All of these things are add-ons at the discretion of the seller. These are not guaranteed to be renewed. Very important fact. Let's continue on. There's the price grid. We're not going to review that. I'm going to review the price grid on GH2 Unfiltered for a deeper dive into this general point. Outline of coverage. This is all standardized. Now here we are here. So now you can see if you buy the supplemental package, $15.25, you'll see it there, $15.25 premium. And you can see also that they are revealing that the premium for dental, vision, hearing package will be re-evaluated each year and subject to change. Now, the very good thing here, and high compliments to the carrier, that they're telling you this up front. Right? There's a transparency here, which I appreciate. No question about it. Basic dental services here. And so what you can do is, again, please go and watch other videos. I've kind of gone through to figure out exactly what this means, what this deductible mean. You can see these things are at zero coinsurance, meaning that your out-of-pocket expenses is zero. And you can see here that the annual maximum
something, and a very important point, is $1,500. You can know in the private market it can be $1,000 or $1,500. Those are the two most general out-of-pocket benefit amounts. And then finally, you can see when you have major services, you can have these different services, crown repairs, crowns, at a 50% coinsurance. Now, the important thing to note then are the takeaways are that number one, this is why I don't sit there and bang on a pot and a pan with a hammer to say that the enhanced benefits inside of Medicare Advantage are the reason alone to choose Medicare Advantage. That's not necessarily the reason for me. And the reason is because some competitor out there in Medigap land can be offering something very similar. Now again, does that mean for me, and I'm going to give you one example in a sneak peek, does that mean that you choose this specific Medigap carrier? No, not by itself is the answer. Because you must evaluate whether or not you're going to use this amount, get the full $1,500, and then compare it to the different premiums. And you can see a huge grid of premiums here. That's my job, to kind of weed through here. And you can see here in Ann Arbor that Plan G, the most popular plan, $150 for a male. And then you've got to take out the discount. Then you've got to figure out what your total premiums, which means $150 if you're a male, plus the $15 is $165, and then compare it to what you would do in the private market. What you will end up having is something pretty darn competitive. Why? All you need to do is put on your common sense hat, right? Since the plans are identical, in other words, this carrier, no carrier is out there saying that my Medigap plan is better than the other guy's Medigap plan. That's not possible because of the fact they're all standardized. Again, lots of videos up here on the channel. Medigap versus Medicare Advantage. The other day I received a very kind email from a person who had watched the video, called it by far the most even-handed look at comparing the two, which is a very complicated decision for Medicare policy owners. That's it for the weekly, everyone. Be sure to not forget to like and subscribe to the channel. As I said, the number of topics here is pretty broad. You're going to have to keep watching different videos because it's very difficult to have all of the different topics indexed in the proper way, because even inside of today, you've had a number of different topics that we've covered. Last thing is, don't forget about the ongoing special offer to GH2 Unfiltered. GH2, this channel, I can tell things in broad terms, just kind of glossing over issues. And by glossing over issues, I'm not trying to minimize it, because the book is called Maximize Your Medicare, which is that, I am trying to give you some information, details that don't sit in the flyers and the advertisements on the commercials, because that stuff doesn't tell you the things you need to know in order to make a decision, or factors, and that in fact Medicare is both simpler and more complicated than it appears. In other financial topics, it's even more complicated because the language and the terminology is not standardized. Meaning, guaranteed rider under insurance company number 1 is not going to mean the same thing as, guaranteed ultra at company number 2. The definitions are different. The cash flows are different. As a result, the analysis and conclusions must be different. As a result of that, I try to go in, since there's no way to really to do that in a 3-minute snappy video, we need deeper dives and closer looks. And for that, there's GH2 Unfiltered. And for new subscribers, this book Maximize Your Medicare, my published book, will be sent to you, and I'll pay for postage anywhere in the lower 48 states. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have questions or comments, I always forget this. If you have questions or comments, please leave them here on the channel. It helps out the channel a great deal. I'll be sure to respond within 24 hours. I'm Jay. I'm the author of this book, Maximize Your Medicare, and Certified Financial Planner. Thanks for watching.